Hello, hello. Today we're going to be doing a watch along of the Japanese film from 1936, directed by Sadao Yamanaka, called Priest of Darkness. It was released on April 30th, and today is April 30th of 2024, making it I believe, 88 years old. Is that right? I probably should have done that math before. I think that's, 88 years old. I'm gonna go with my gut there. Pretty old. And because of that, we're actually going to be watching it together. So I'll actually have it up on stream, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it's going to be up on the screen. So you don't have to go find your own source to watch it. So that's nice. Its Japanese title is this kanji. Wow. How you say that is Kochiyama Soshun, or Soshun. I think is it Soshun? Soshun, sorry. Kochiyama Soshun. And apparently that's a name. I'm not extremely familiar with this film. I've seen one other film from this director, not Humanity in Paper Balloons, but a pot, what is it called? Let me see. Tonge Sazen and the Pot Worth a Million Ryo. Released the year before this one, in 1935. Really good film. As you can see, I gave it 4 stars. Really enjoyed that one. It's pretty lighthearted and it's very serious. I do think, from what I gather, Priest of Darkness is maybe a little bit of a heavier film, perhaps, but I'm not really sure. Their synopsis is: a boy steals a knife from an old samurai, unaware of its value, setting off a strange chain of events. Don't know what that means. Should be interesting. 82 minutes long, so pretty short, pretty reasonable length. I think the other film was around that, right? 92 minutes, that was a little longer. Yeah, so this should probably breeze by. We'll see. I don't have too much else to say about it since I've never seen it before. Usually in the one watch along that I've done before this, I've seen the film, so I could maybe talk about it a bit more, but in this case, I haven't, so it's a new experience for me. Well, I guess we'll jump into it. Before we do that, actually, I will mention I will be talking throughout the film as I'm watching it. So if you don't like that, then, well, you might want to turn away now. I'm sorry about that, but that's just how it is. It's a watch along, so it's just for fun. Also, I'd probably not watch it for the first time with me. Maybe if this is a repeated viewing for you, then you can join me, but if it's your first time, you might want to watch it on your own anyways. Once the film's done, I'll probably discuss it a little bit if there's anybody to discuss it with. Or I'll read some reviews on Letterboxd, IMDb, wherever else. Maybe some articles if there are any. We'll just talk about it a little bit, and then I'll probably wrap up the stream after that. Okay, I think we can jump into it now. I'll say this is the 4K restoration that was done not long ago. I think, actually, it's been maybe 5 or so years ago, I believe. But the Blu-ray is relatively recently. Was released relatively recent. But it's only available in Japan and without subtitles. As you can imagine, had to do some trickery to get this available with subtitles. So, enjoy. Nikatsu's production. I love early Nikatsu. Sadao Yamanaka, very well-renowned director, even though only 3 of his films remain today. I believe he made something like in the teens of films. I don't remember exactly. But he died at 28 years old, sadly, from dysentery. I believe just after the war, or I think it was 1938 when he died, if I recall correctly. So it was during the war, but I mean, I think after his deployment, I should say. It was either during or right after his deployment. But nonetheless, very sad. Only 28 years old. And clearly had a lot of talent. Sorry about that, I had the music playing still. Completely forgot. Yeah, Setsuko Hara's in this. I believe Daisuke Kato is also in this. Looking forward to seeing him. Hopefully you all can hear this pretty well. Yeah, I just checked the audio. Seems like it sounds good. I do like that this town feels quite populated. Lots of background actors and whatnot. Although this is very clearly a set. Not that that's a bad thing or anything. Kind of like when I kind of like the illusion. I don't know. I like being able to tell. I don't know. There's a feel to it, especially in these older films. I enjoy. Is that Setsuko Hara? I think it might be. I don't remember. I think I saw what her character name was supposed to be, but I'm not sure now. I don't know if I've seen her in anything earlier than this. I'm not sure when she started acting. Only about 5 minutes in, or a little bit over 5 minutes, and we've already gotten into the plot from the synopsis. Very quick storytelling. This kid seems to be a little bit of a bother. Although I will say he doesn't look like much of a kid. Maybe like late teens. Certainly old enough that I would I would assume he would know better. I'm sure a lot of people care if they lose 1,000 Rio. I'm not exactly sure how much that is, but I'm sure it's significant enough. There's always someone above the other. There's always tiers to how bad people are, especially in films that are very clearly defined. There's probably somebody above this guy, whether we'll see him or not. I don't know, but